What's going on, y'all? KM Best here. I am currently ranked 3 in the world with this Galacta Surfer deck, and it's so good that even though I normally talk about multiple decks in my day 1 decks video, I'm putting that off for a day, and we're just gonna talk about this because I am so happy to have Silver Surfer back. So let's talk about the deck that has me top 3 in the world. Galacta is the newest Season Pass card in Marvel Snap, and she's a 4/6 with the ability to give +3 to the first card played on another location each turn. This is a natural fit for Silver Surfer, which has many cards that scale with buffs applied to them. The most important of these are going to be Brood, Sebastian Shaw, and, although I know it sounds weird, Absorbing Man. Let's go through all of those use cases real quick so you understand exactly what this card is doing in this deck. With Brood, she makes your turn 5 Broods, normally not a good play at all, into a 15 power 3-drop. That's an obviously strong thing that has very clear implications for how you want to set up your ordering. In addition, because she affects the first card played at another location, that means you can actually play cards on her location, like a Forge, for example, because it's turn 5 after you play her, and then you have a 7 power Brood. This is just a bunch of numbers. Sebastian Shaw gets +5 from this card. That's very, very good. You also have additional ways of getting power onto Sebastian Shaw, like Gwenpool, like Silver Surfer, like Nova, like Forge. I made more, and I know this is a weird number to pick out, but it is like a very common number, 17 power Sebastian Shaws with this deck than I ever have before. One of the major weaknesses of traditional Silver Surfer decks is that if they aren't opening on their good cards on 3, i.e., Brood into abs, they can be very, very weak. It's easy to snap into them because you know they aren't going to create a lot of points. What Galacta adds is the ability to make Brood abs a turn 5, turn 6 play. Imagine the following level of play, the following combination of cards. So, on turn 3, you play Hope Summers in the middle lane. On turn 4, you play Galacta in the middle lane. On turn 5, you play a 3-drop in the middle lane and a Brood on another lane. On turn 6, you play an Absorbing Man on that Brood. And basically what happened there is you made a 15 power Brood and a 21 power Absorbing Man, and that's when it's like late in the game. That is not the level of point explosion that people are prepared for from a deck like this. And it makes it much more difficult for your opponents to be confident in their ability to snap into you. So all of that is what Galacta adds to the deck. But ultimately, the real thing, the biggest thing she adds to the deck is beef. Silver Surfer is a deck that does have a limited amount of point output. Galacta's combinations with these cards that effectively multiply her buff by some amount, like Brood, like an Absorbing Man on a Brood, like even, Sebastian Shaw, that is what makes this deck actually tick now. This is a deck that got an incredible buff with this card, not just because obviously more points is good, but because Surfer's biggest issue has always been point output. Its numbers can only go so high. So when you give a deck whose biggest problem is sometimes my point output isn't enough, and sometimes my point output is predictable, and you give them a way to alleviate both of those problems at once, you have a recipe for a deck that, in my opinion, is back from the dead. With all of that said, I've been very impressed with Galacta. Let's get into the card-by-card breakdown. Nova is a classic inclusion in Silver Surfer lists for a variety of reasons. This deck is very often not going to want to play this card until a little bit later into the game. It's often going to have extra energy with which to fit this card in, and it's not going to necessarily want that space on the board taken up, given how easily you can fill those spaces. Additionally, this card has some really important use cases in games where you really want to play a Hope Summers and put a 3-drop somewhere else. So like, let's say you have a Hope Summers and a Brood, and you really want to play that Brood out. You play Hope Summers on 3, and then you play Nova on the Hope Summers and Brood elsewhere, and that way you have your 6 energy on 5, which is the whole reason you're playing Hope Summers in the first place, so that you can get 6 energy on 5. Nova lets you do that. Nova can usually be woven in when you're doing like your multiple 4-drop lines. And I do think there's something to be said about maybe looking at cutting Gwenpool, but we'll get to that when we get to it. This deck has so many ways of multiplying the effectiveness of buffs. Obviously, Forge is an excellent card when you are able to multiply the effectiveness of buffs. This is actually just incredibly straightforward. This is a card that goes extremely well with everything we talked about with Galacta. It's just a little bit cheaper and a little bit smaller. Brood has always been the protagonist of Silver Surfer decks, the card that is the meat of the strategy a lot of the time. And what Galacta adds to Brood is the ability to be a back-end threat and not just a you played this on turn 3 or die if you don't kind of card. Silver Surfer is fairly nostalgic to me. I think Silver Surfer was like among the first really truly broken cards in Marvel Snap post-release. And so I'm always a little nostalgic for a deck like this that plays like this, that is unique and stacks buffs in the way that this deck does. Silver Surfer itself is very often going to be playing for a large number. We talk about how many of the cards in this deck are able to multiply the effectiveness of buffs, and Silver Surfer is obviously an excellent buff card when you play cards like Brood, when you Absorbing Mana a Brood. But even when that isn't happening, this card is very often playing for 8 or 10 points, because it's very unlikely that you're just going to be able to do absolutely nothing in terms of 3-drop output. It's not always going to be the GOAT greatest amazing card of all time if you aren't doing the Brood stuff, but it's usually going to be extremely solid. What Galacta does is make you a little bit less reliant on this card, because you are able to do stuff like turn 5, 15 to 21 power Brood, turn 6, 21 power Absorbing Man. Like, you don't even need Silver Surfer to win some of those lanes. That's the Infinite. You're playing the Infinite. It's a bunch of numbers. Killmonger's a good card generally right now, and I think one of the reasons to play Silver Surfer is that Killmonger is a good card generally right now. And Silver Surfer has long been defined by its own point output and how relevant cards like Killmonger and the other tech slot that this card tends to occupy are. In this case, we have Red Guardian in there. Both Killmonger and Red Guardian are not only extremely relevant right now, but like, Killmonger makes your Red Guardian more relevant by getting rid of small things that would otherwise prevent your Red Guardian from hitting the stuff you actually want to hit. This is a really good tech combination right now. Red Guardian is in tons of normal decks. Killmonger is in tons of normal decks. These are very relevant cards, and that usually tends to be when Silver Surfer is at its absolute apex. Red Guardian, we talked about a little bit just now when in the context of Killmonger, but this is a one-size-fit-all solution to a bunch of stuff that you otherwise have no answer to. Your opponent is playing, Tribunal, and you need to get rid of an Iron Man. You don't really have any other card that comes anywhere close to being able to do that. Red Guardian is your catch-all. There's a lot of things that they can just be incidentally solved by Red Guardian, just slowing people down. You otherwise have very few answers to like a Fenris Wolf, things like that. The deck does a lot of damage because this card is quite strong right now. And you can tell how strong it is because it's in and out of various anti-venom shells. And whenever there's like a 3-drop tech card that's being played in like the best pile of good cards deck, if there's enough of those that are really good right now, that's usually the time to look at Silver Surfer, as long as it has meaningful point output. And it didn't have meaningful point output. Galacta comes out, and now it has meaningful point output. Sebastian Shaw just gets absolutely freaking huge here. And I had to censor myself from not saying the other version of that word there, because I really want to emphasize just how big this guy gets. This deck is a factory of double-digit Shaws. There are so many enormous freaking dudes you can make with this guy. Like, I made so many 17 power Sebastian Shaws. It's a lot. And like, that is just a really rare thing in a deck. Like, the ceiling is so much higher when you can do that, We talked about how like point ceilings have always been a limiter on this deck. Galacta removes some of those ceilings, or at least takes them and pushes them up much, much, much higher. And Shaw is a great example of that. I've never had so consistent, so just consistency with the size of this guy. Copycat is in here for one simple reason, and it's that a lot of your 3-drops don't actually want to be played on turn 3. Cards like Killmonger might want to be held, looking for better things to do. Cards like, of course, the Red Guardian might want to be held, looking for better things to do. And you're going to have these draws where it's like your hand is like Killmonger, Red Guardian, Galacta, Sebastian Shaw. And it's like, oh, but I really wanted to save my Sebastian Shaw or Brood, what have you, for the Galacta. And now I don't get to do that because otherwise I'll just like skip my turn 3. And so what I'm saying to you is if you choose to replace this card with a budget replacement, which I think is fine, make sure it's a card that you actually are happy to just play on turn 3. It's gotta be something that you actually want to see and not something that is required to be like held in your hand to get maximum value. Just a card that is good to play. That's what you want to do if you're trying to budget replace this. Absman absolutely wrecks in this deck. I've already talked about the, 15 power Brood, 21 power Absman play. That's his real highlight, but like obviously you're also a normal Surfer deck, so you still do like Forge, Brood, Abs, and beat the crap out of people that way. It's just that now you have these higher point ceiling plays that you can actually like what was previously your best possible nut draw is now like the third best thing this deck does. And that's really a testament to what Galacta can bring to bear. This card is a beast. I really don't have another way of saying it. I personally think that there is absolutely no way you are ever going to play Silver Surfer without this card going forward. I am wildly impressed with her in this shell. I have not actually investigated much outside of this shell yet because when I started playing this deck, I got stuck on it. I kept playing it. I kept winning. It was just awesome. And when you have a deck like that, I mean, I encourage you to keep playing whenever you're in that zone. But she was such an important part of this. We've talked about the point ceiling dynamic that she raises up and makes more relevant. But like, I think this card is just very, very strong. The card I would almost compare it to is like Miss Marvel when she first came out. That's what it feels like to do this, where it's just like, this is just a big damn card that does a lot of big damn stuff. And I am just never unhappy to see her. And she's so good that she makes me want to hold my nut draw of Brood Abs until later in the game because it's just better. And that's crazy. She's really strong. And this is a card that I would not be surprised if there were wider applications for. Normally my day one video is about wider applications, but I fell in love with this deck, and so my day one video is about this deck. This is the one card in this deck that I feel real tension about, because basically every single time you would rather play Galacta than Gwenpool. And she doesn't cost 3. And I can definitely see that, like, I feel the lack of 3 costs occasionally. That said, there are also plenty of games where you simply don't draw Galacta, and Gwenpool is still good doing your normal Surfer stuff. It's just that it's weird. The previous nut draws of this deck just pale so far in comparison to the Galacta ones that it's like, this deck was already, like, semi-playable, and it still is without Galacta, and then it's like hooking up a V8 engine to like a horse and buggy. That's what it feels like a little bit. And so you're like, all right, what's the point of this horse then? We got an engine now. I don't get it. And Galacta is so much better than Gwenpool, but Gwenpool is still like just a pretty solid card. I do feel the squeeze on early plays where it's like, I can see taking this out for another 2. I can see taking this out for another 3. All of that would make perfect sense to me. It all conceptually makes sense in my head. I can see doing it. I just haven't been willing to make that call just yet. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching that video. As always, I have been KM Best. I will see you in the next one. We're about to jump into some gameplay, but before we do, I would like to remind you that you can support me by liking, subscribing, commenting. I read all the comments, and of course also on Metafy. Set up a little Patreon-style page over on Metafy So if you want to support my content, please do check that out as well. As always, thank you so much. I've been KM Best, and you've been phenomenal. And we'll see you in the next one right after the gameplay. I'm chilling. I ain't worried about nothing. All right. Fair enough. I guess you ain't worried about nothing. You must have had literally nothing. It must have been bad. That shit must have been awful. Come on, Red Guardian. I need you, buddy. That's actually acceptable, I think. Surely they never get my ass here. They actually mostly don't want to fill that up. It's weird, but true. They couldn't win a second lane. I feel like they probably could have won a second lane. I'm not going to lie to you. Alright, here's where they fill up my guy in the middle, right? Well, RIP to that ice cube. Fucking 1-5 Nova. Of course it is. So I'm pretty sure I'm winning here. Hell yeah! Also, what the fuck? What a cook. Just got Silver Sable. Too bad she got the hot nerf. She did kind of get the hot nerf here. This Galacta Brood thing is honestly quite ridiculous. So far, what I can say is I've been very happy with Galacta Brood. Problem. Now I want to play Brood first. Which I'm going to do. I am going to do that. Fastos. Whoa. Have I played a Luna deck yet? No, I haven't. The ordering that we have to make on plays like this is unique and weird. I wouldn't normally want to devote a Brood and a Shaw to the same lane, but they've put so much effort into that lane that I kind of think I should. Oh, God. Wait, we win the tiebreaker? Holy shit, Ice Cube busted. They were gonna beat my fucking ass with this shit. Boy, this sure is a hand. Hope Summers Gwenpool, interesting. Oh, they get the Zabu on one. Bullshit. Rigged ass game. Oh, I could do double Gwenpool. Would I rather just do double Gwenpool? I think I might. Oh, wow, that's actually very helpful. So if I go Galacta now... Okay. Oh, I see the problem. Still.
Watching some ED hijinks and saw it on there. Yeah, it's going good. I appreciate it, Demigod. Let me, just in case, hit this up. We love that. We love that. Forged Shaw Galacta is kind of an interesting conundrum, honestly. Are we doing Forge Hope Galacta? Probably better. Life is so painful, chat. Should actually be illegal to be this unlucky. Right as I said, I was doing Forge Hope Galacta. There ought to be a law. There ought to be a law. There should be a law against that, too. Do you think Luna Snow works in a high Evo Red Hulk deck? I'm not sure. I doubt it. Maybe? Pretty solid over here. Pretty solid over here. The old 6-power final turn brood no Silver Surfer. Wait, I'm like, ultimately the only answer actually was that I had to play the thing that pulled. I had to play the 3/5 on the middle and then the 4 on the middle. I think that's what had to happen. Why do you not play Nova early? It's typically better not to. Copycat a copycat. All right, sure. Nah. I think I gotta do it like that. I will not complain about that. This is a hard turn. Got my ass. I figured they had one guy that was just, like, incredibly large. And so I had to play for all three lanes in meaningful ways. Insane. Deep space fucking me here. Wait, we win the tiebreaker. Holy crap. We win the tiebreaker. Deep Space didn't fuck me hard enough. Based? No other words for that other than based and magento-pilled. Has Shadow King been an issue for you? No, weirdly. I guess maybe not that weird, but no. That's the answer. Black Swan. Shadow King's about to be an issue. That is definitely a thing that is going to happen to me in the future, yes. I 100% believe Galacta is good in RSM. No doubt. It's gorgeous, isn't it? How cruel. Whoa! That's really scary. That's super terrifying. Will you ever be playing Rivals in your free time, Cam? I doubt it. We turned off the Khazar! I didn't snap because I was afraid of a blue Marvel, but fucking LMAO. They were gonna do some cool ass shit with this Onslaught Mystique Khazar. Is getting to 6 energy on 5. And Luna Snow does do that. So I can see it. I actually can see it. Getting to 6 on 5 is a relevant thing that I can understand as being important. Alright. I do like that we got rid of this. They're Luna Snowing. Alright, fuck off, Scream. Ow. With it. Pretty sure they just died. Pretty sure they just heinously and violently passed away. Do we lose to Magneto? I have no idea. If we snap the Bob, maybe, maybe not. So we go like this. I mean, that's our worst draw by a bunch. So if they Magneto, I'm pretty sure we lose. I don't think they have Eliath, but I'm pretty sure we're just going to die regardless. Oh my god! Well, okay then. Okay, happy about that. Wonderful. I'm definitely getting what can. You would imagine. Getting Wakand does seem like a distinct possibility here. This fucking card. Not playing it middle? Huh. I mean, that means they're playing something else big there? Whoa. I don't know. I doubt I win, but it's kind of interesting. I feel like, yeah, it's a fart here, it's a Magento, things of that nature, yeah? It's a hard rope as they open the screen. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Do I win this on a tiebreaker? I do! Let's go! Oh, man.